Hello, this is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. We seem to have got it right this time. That's what happens when you go live, right, on these challenging things.
This meeting is being recorded.
Right.
The recording has stopped.
Seems to be the recording that's the problem here. Right, anyway, this is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. And on this roundtable on a Friday, we talk about home educating, homeschooling. So talk to people who've actually had the journey of homeschooling their children, or in some countries they say home education, and what it's been like for them. What were some of the challenges, or are still some of the challenges, or what are some of the triumphs that they've enjoyed in terms of themselves and the children. So today we're talking to someone the whole situation is very, very different, right? Because normally in a lot of cases I speak to home educators or homeschooler who's actually still going through the journey with their children. But this is something totally different. Roxy have done something totally different. She began and she came out, right? So she's going to tell us what's happening, etc. So thank you for coming on the show. And I do appreciate you taking the time off to come on the show. And bearing in mind, we had so many challenges already, right? Thank you for hanging in there with me. I am really grateful for that, because we've had so many on off, because I don't know what's going on. Thank you very much. How are you?
It makes for a story, that's for sure. I'm Roxy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. But I'm Roxy. I own the Simply Seeded Farm. So on IG and Facebook, it's Simply Seeded 2. Another story, just got my old Facebook hacked. So I have Simply Seeded on there and then Simply Seeded 2. But I teach agriculture education classes on my farm. So we learn about animal husbandry, animal safety. We learn about soil, composting, gardening. So I'm a blended family. We have 5 kids. And yes, I did start homeschooling my 2 younger ones. They're currently 8 and 5, the ones that I was homeschooling. But now I did end up sending them back to school. But I teach homeschooled children on my farm. So we have about 100 kids that come every month. And we teach them, or I teach them agriculture education. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Okay. So you said that you used to home educate your children. America say homeschooling. You used to homeschool your children. Mm-hmm. So A, when did you start homeschooling them? And B, why did you stop?
Mm-hmm. So I was homeschooled, and I thought I was always going to homeschool my kids, but then it ended up coming when we were moving around. I put them in traditional school as like a co-op, but I could still go in. It was a very small co-op, so it was about 12 students, 2 teachers, very interactive. And then COVID happened, so I pulled mine to start educating her at home. And then we lasted about through that next year, through halfway through her kindergarten year. So she was in pre-K, and then I was homeschooling her through the end of pre-K into kindergarten. And then we kept butting heads. I realized, this isn't healthy for either of us. And that's why I ended up sending her back to a traditional school. And that's and then my other 2 younger ones are also continuing with the traditional school right now. So it started through COVID, and then it ended up not being the best situation for both of us. And then now they're back at traditional school.
Okay, but you say it was one of the children that you were butting heads with, but you decided to send the other 2. How did they feel going back?
They were excited. So, which was good, because when she first started, there was a lot of anxiety there, and there was a separation. So initially she was very excited, and then we started having the separation anxiety, which was a big challenge. And then now she loves it and she thrives. And she didn't have any friends when she first started, so that was a big challenge. And I think that was part of the separation anxiety, a little bit of bullying thrown in there. But now they're both doing very well. But at first, again, it was a challenge.
Right, thank you. So when you say both doing very well, what does very well look like for you?
So they have their friend group. Their friend group is healthy, and then they're learning well in school. They get along with others, for the majority of the time. They're able to navigate through different challenges that come up. They're able to navigate with their receiving the information of what the teacher is teaching them, and then being able to push that information back out in different forms. And if there's something that happens, they're able to then communicate that issue to the teachers or a counselor or myself. So that's, for right now, they're doing really well.
Do you think, thank you for that, do you think that the school is actually enabling them to be critical thinkers?
So I try and look at it both aspects. So yes and no. So our current, I live in Maryland, and how we split up in the United States, how we split up our school system is per county. So we have the whole Maryland education system, and then it's split up per county. And each county kind of decides how they want to run their education and what they're going to teach their kids and the teachers and what have you. For my county specifically, right now, their education is the first thing. So for example, when I teach classes on my farm, my number one priority is to pass off education about the animals. This is how we treat animals. This is how you treat animals. You can treat animals poorly. You can treat animals well. This is how you can raise them. Yes, there are many ways to skin a cat, but we were focusing on passing off that education, not giving my opinion. I mean, there are times I give my opinion, but it's really education focused. And if afterwards they want to raise animals, great. If they don't want to raise animals, great. They just have that knowledge. So for the school, their focus is on learning the core fundamentals, per se. Outside of, and that's why I want them to learn those core fundamentals. With a lot of the character traits and some of the social skills, but a lot of the character traits, those subconscious things, then no, I don't always think the school can be the best. Yes, there are the challenges that, again, when it comes to bullying or someone's acting up, or, they could be acting up and they learn how to navigate. But just overall, I don't think, I think the teachers are tired and they're overbooked and overwhelmed. And I'm looking at the school as, I want you to teach the basics, and then the other stuff then falls more on myself of teaching them. So with critical thinking skills, no, I think that falls more on myself, and giving them the tools that they need to then go back into school or, the playground or wherever they are to handle the issues or concerns that may come up.
That's interesting. Thank you. Did you say that you were home educated yourself?
So I was, yes. So I I went back and forth between, I actually did private school when I was growing up, and then I was homeschooled and private school, homeschool. So I was in and out both of private school and homeschool, and I went to different schools. So I think I started off in pre-K, then I was homeschooled for a couple of years, went to a private school, then came back out, was homeschooled for another couple of years, and then finished out high school in a private school. Excuse me.
Okay. So how do you think that have affected your education? And how do you think it affected your outlook in terms of how you actually deal with your children in terms of sending them back to the mainstream education? Do you think that might have been, some of the influence?
So I was really wanting to do homeschool when I first started. So I was super excited about it. I did well as a homeschool student. And I was really good at English and like the English core subjects. And my mom, when she taught me, she kind of went with, what I did well at. She encouraged and pushed my creativity. And then, so yes, it has shaped with me wanting to then do the homeschool later. I think it depends on the personalities of the parents and the children, kind of how the outcome is, because some do really, some can do really well and some can't. And then how it's given my outlook. I think there's, again, every situation can be dependent, but there can be pros and cons of every situation. I appreciated my mom to push me to be creative, and I'm good at being creative. And that allowed me to, like you said before, think outside the box. And that in turn has helped me in thinking differently in my work situations or with people situations. So through being homeschooled, my mom was able to kind of pull out what I was like good at, and then push to kind of build on that, which that has helped me throughout my life because it's made me think differently. And some of the challenges that has happened. So when I went to private school, and again, even though it was a private school, we were 2 years ahead in English and 2 years behind in math. And math has always been my struggle. So when I got into a private school, I would always finish my work super fast when it came to English, but then I would have to, and then I would be waiting on the other students. Whereas when I ended up coming to the math or any of the chemistry or science subjects, I had to, it took me longer, and then they would be waiting on me, and then I'd have to go get help afterwards. And then even that lasted throughout college, where some of those things I just wasn't getting. And sometimes my brain doesn't really work with the math and the sciences. So it was a struggle throughout high school and throughout college. So.
Thank you for that. So why did your mom decide to homeschool you? Have you ever asked her?
I don't know if I actually, I don't think she believed in sending me to the public school because she didn't think that they were equipped enough to be able to handle what we needed. Now, my brother actually did go to a public school and he did well in it as well. So it's just at that time, I think she wanted to give us a better education than she thought the school could do. And she was able to when it came to her work situation. And then I think by my brother, he needed something different, and she was able to recognize that and then kind of go along to kind of adjust with him for what he ended up doing better. And when my brother went to public school, he ended up going to a school where they had half the day was I don't know what the specific name of it's called, but he was able to do culinary arts. So he became really good at cooking. So half the day was spent in the school, where half of the other day he was in a kitchen, and that ended up he did well with it. So kind of like with homeschooling, he was able to, they were able to adjust with the child and then get them out of the classroom and learn in different arena.
It sounds that the fact that your brother went to traditional school, but yet still he had like a homeschool element because, they had cooking, etc. So what is he doing now? Is he a chef?
He is not. Actually, he works on HVAC systems. So like air conditioning, he likes to build and tinker with that. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because, it's like what the skills he liked at the time was cooking. So that's really is good in the sense
he does cook for his family. And every time I go down there, I request pizza because he's very skilled. And I think now he just does it more for enjoyment. And he still does cook a lot, but he enjoys, I think, the physical work of what he does.
That's fantastic. That was quite brave of your mom actually to take on, because I'm sure when she did, there was not so many people doing homeschooling. But the fact that she did,
it was definitely had a lot of those. You're the homeschool kids are the weird ones, and there wasn't a lot of social groups. Now my mom had me very social. I was very socially active, but yes, she definitely did get that, I guess, traditional look of why are you homeschooling? You're going to be the odd one out kind of thing.
Yeah. And, I suppose things like, oh, well, she's not going to do well. This kind of a stereotypical attitude of, because they don't know a lot about it, it brings up a fear and the element of fear with other people. Your mother was very brave to do that. Well done to her. That was good.
Well, I am mixed. So she's white, my dad's black. So she had crossed that, the branches of uncomfortableness and doing things against the grain just
exactly.
So she's like, well, might as well go all the way then.
Exactly. She definitely are thinking outside of the box woman.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they have to say, that's their business, That's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, thank you. You say you're home. So what do you homeschool all the people, because you say you send your children back to home to the traditional education. Hello. And so what you do now is you homeschool other people's children. So what do you homeschool them in? Is it just in, yeah, you tell us.
Yeah, so I have 2 classes on my farm. One is a beginning farm class, and that we go over, it's across 10 months. So we start in September and we go all the way to June, and we learn about, like, the first class is about chicken. So we get very accustomed with the different parts of a chicken, how to hold a chicken, different parts of an egg, what the purpose of a chicken can be, what you can do with the chicken. And then we go into soil and livestock, we do gift giving, we learn about animal safety, we plant seeds. So I created the curriculum myself. I wanted to get really hands-on experiences for the kids, because I felt that, you can go to the zoo, or you can go to, I don't know if you have them over there, but we have, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of what they are called. Fairs, sorry. So you have people where you have, carnival rides, and then you have animals set up, and people do 4-H where they show their animals. So, but a lot of times it's through the cage. So I wanted to create a very hands-on experience for these kids to come and actually have the animals in their face, to be able to hold the animals, to get poop all in their hands or step in poop, to just get very hands-on classes about the farm and the nature per se, and how all of it relates and why any of it's important, and just to build their confidence through being able to build their confidence through the animals. Because again, a lot of these kids have not been around animals when they come to the farm, or if they have, it's been through a cage. And I wanted to give them an opportunity where it's up close and personal that they might not get anywhere else.
That sounds really interesting. How old are the children?
So they range from 2 to 16.
All right. So throughout the, okay. And what's the criteria for parents actually sending the children to this setup?
So I tell everybody it's more about interest rather than age, because I can have a 2-year-old who's super invested, but a 16-year-old who has no interest. So if they're interested in learning about animals or coming on a farm, then that's a class for them. So for example, the parents for the beginning farm class, they have to stay on, because again, their child may not be used to being this close to an animal, because all of my animals free range. So when they come, pull up, they open the door, my cats are getting in the car, the chickens are getting in their car, and they come out, the chickens are surrounding them, the geese are running around yelling, the cats are all up in their face, the dogs are up in their face. So because of that, I tell the parents they need to stay on the property. They can have all of their siblings if they want, and they just have to, essentially the criteria is interest, and then they just have to stay on the farm. Now my farm chores class is usually like my secondary. So then they'll usually take my beginning farm classes, and then they'll come and they will get dropped off by their parent. And then they will help me with the daily, weekly, monthly, seasonally, yearly chores that we have to do on the farm. So that's usually like the second step for them, for the farm. But again, it's based off of interest.
Right. So how long is a class? How long is a class?
The beginning farm class is an hour and a half, and the farm chores class is 2 hours. And a lot of people, there are some that are down the street, but a lot of people drive at least a minimum of 45 minutes to get to the classes. Some drive an hour and a half. Just because, I know at the beginning you ask, why did I homeschool, or why did I send back my kids? And one of the reasons I started these classes is I am a first generation farmer, which means I did not grow up with any of these animals or any of this. And I'm self-taught. So I wanted to, and I had a girl who, when I lived in Southern Maryland, she asked me what was in my yard. She said her son said they were chickens, but she wasn't sure. She was probably about 22, 23. And I'm like, how do you not know what a chicken is? But I don't think there's exposure. And when I started opening up the farm for classes, or even just having people come over and buy eggs, they would ask all these questions. And I see there's a need. So when it goes now into having my classes and the people driving, there's definitely a need that's not being met. So even with homeschooling, it can kind of go into, you see these schools and the needs aren't being met. And so then you're start raising the little red flag and, hey, there's something going on here. And then it kind of caveats into a lot of people why they would end up going into homeschooling if their needs not being met. I need to try and help my child
Mhm, mhm,
being able to thrive, not just in a school setting, but outside in life.
mhm, mhm. So do you open your farm to schools as well, or just for homeschooling?
Both. So I have a Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a Saturday class that for kids to, if they go to a traditional school, they can come. And then I have co-ops come, and then I've also taken my animals and done presentations on the school systems there, or a school classroom, or what have you. And I do like the intimacy of small stuff, and I do like when they come to the farm because again, they get to get outside, they get to see the whole environment with the animals. But yeah, so I do both.
Okay. Okay. So what have you got on your farm? You have animals and you have plants and stuff, right? What have you got?
Yeah, so we have everything except a horse and an alpaca or a llama. So we have geese, ducks, chickens, we have cows, goats, sheep, we have lots of cats, dogs, and then inside we have fish and birds. So we get up to about 200 animals on the farm. We do regenerative farming where we make sure the animals are kind of used to their purpose. We rotate our cows so they move pasture every day. So when the kids come out, they're getting to see, hey, the poop that the cow just pooped out is actually fertilizing the soil, and the chickens are coming and scratching it up so it spreads out some more. And then after the cows have eaten down the grass and we've moved the chickens behind them and the pigs come and have rooted up, then the soil grows back, or the grass grows a lot healthier than if we just came through with the tractor and tilled up everything. And we do have a garden, and then kids help plant seeds. And we talk about, if you don't put 15 kids in one room, you don't put 15 seeds in one little packet. And then this is why it's important. This is why it matters. And then we, have them do chores so they can kind of see how all of it works together.
Mhm. Wow, I'm sitting here visualizing all of this thing. Wow.
Lots of
Oh
stuff
my
going on.
goodness. Exactly. So what happened in the winter?
We keep having classes. So what I tell the kids is through rain, mud, snow, and heat, the animals still need to be fed. They need to be fed even when I don't feel good. And I keep my classes going throughout that time because I think it helps teach subconscious traits that we still need to continue to do things even if we don't feel good or even if the weather's gross or bad. So we continue to come out here. They bundle up just the same. Again, and the kids are so resilient. What's amazing is they don't seem to, the parents are maybe a little more affected by it than the kids are. The kids will just go hop in the puddles. And sometimes they will complain, and then we would then I'll caveat into, well, this is why it's important. Because again, these animals need us. They still need to be taken care of, and we still need to come out and show up for them. So a lot of the things I teach on my farm are subconscious traits that I'm trying to pass off for them that they might not be getting, elsewhere, or just one more ability or one more activity that they're able to kind of practice or learn other traits or apply the traits that they may have learned at home or maybe learning at home. For example, we step in poop and we get dirty and it's gross and we dig in soil. But then kind of how we were talking about is a lot of times kids don't know how to handle that. They get mud on them and then they get upset because there's mud on them. Well, just wipe it on your pants or just go wipe it, dump your hand in some water. And by them coming and working through even the gross weather or gross circumstances or hard circumstances, then they are learning those subconscious traits that you can't always learn in school because you're not having the activities that were going to push them outside of their comfort zone.
That is so true, because being on the farm is really pushing them out of their comfort zone.
It is. So for my farm classes, for the farm chores class, they come and do farm chores. And I tell the parents, hey, it's a drop off, because a lot of times the parents are doing what they naturally do at home, which is, well, let me help you here or let me help you there. No, let the child make a mistake. So I'm very much, I'm not a gentle parent. I also am not, I like to push kids outside of their comfort zone. So for example, when I see the kid trying to struggle to take off a lid, they ask for help or they say, I can't do it. And one of my rules on the farm is they're not allowed to say, I cannot.
Mhm.
It's difficult. This is hard. I need help, but they can't say, I can't do it because they can. They just have to figure out a different way. So I will let them sit there and try and struggle with the lid, and I'll watch their brain. I can see them working, trying to problem solve. So they, put their foot on the put the foot on the feeder to try and then get it, or they'll ask their friend to come over and try and get it. So there's a lot of problem solving, and it's amazing. So even in both of my classes, both the farm tours and the beginning farm class, when they start in September, even after the first class, even halfway through the classes, and then at the end of the year, they're like different kids because they're more comfortable. I mean, I have kids that are afraid to even walk up to where we do our circle time area because they're so afraid and petrified of the animals. And then by the end, I have kids walking backwards down a hayloft or just going and picking up rabbits. And then they're able to, they get scratched or the rabbit starts, going up their shirt, or like we have kittens on the farm. So the kitten's grabbing, and they now are able to understand, hey, this kitten's upset. Here's how to handle it, instead of just freaking out and dropping the animal. Because a lot of them have, the rabbit scratches them, the little baby rabbits scratch them, and then they just drop the animal on the floor. So they're learning so many different traits besides just coming and doing chores. They're learning task completion. They're learning problem solving. They're learning to think for themselves or think for others. They're learning to pay attention, not only for, their friends, but also these animals. They're learning to say, hey, this chicken looks sick, or hey, this cage is open. It's gonna, they're just learning a lot of subconscious traits by coming here.
My goodness, it sounds as so much, is that something they really need? Because there's so, as you rightly said, there's some children don't even know where this egg come from. Sorry, some of them say, oh, it's from the supermarket. Yes, but where does it come from? So things like that, I think it is so wonderful. That's the reason why I ask you, is it only for home education children? Because I just think that it's not only homeschooling children need it. Children need it because a lot of them don't know the basic.
And the parents end up having a lot of fun by the end, not even by the end, but after a couple classes. I have the husband and wife both coming, or the father and mother. I have grandparents that join. I have 2 sets of grandparents that come every class. They come and they just learn right along, or even just being outside and getting the vitamin D and the fresh air. It's helps the mental portion of not only the kids, but the parents as well.
You could see why though. Oh my goodness. That's fantastic, because when you say that you teach homeschooling, I'm thinking, okay, let's hear what you teach. But it's fascinating. Wow. So another thing is, so what are this question is twofold. What are some of the triumphs of homeschooling of your children when you were homeschooling them? And now, what are some of the triumphs with you homeschooling these children you're doing?
So for my kids, they become more independent. My daughter's 8 and she cooks a meal every week. She is able to go out, and if I need her to complete a task by herself. Same as my 5-year-old. My 5-year-old actually cooks as well. And my son knows, learns his knife skills. So they have been pushed to do things that not everybody allows their kids to do because they might be afraid of them getting hurt or something happen. They're able to trust themselves in, for example, if they go and climb up and over a gate. I know that is so simple, but I just had a parent yesterday, they were climbing up over the gate and it's like, oh, I don't want my child to fall. Well, just don't fall then. I have kids ask me all the time, well, what if the chicken pecks me? It's going to peck you. That's okay. You're going to be able to go through that. So my children are able to, they're independent and they're able to they've again, we're always working, but they're able to navigate when something happens. They are resilient. So they don't, if they step in poop or if they fall down, they've learned to brush themselves off and keep going. So they've learned a lot of those subconscious traits. And then how it translates then when they're in school is, you know, if they have something that's challenging, they're either able to brush it off or they're able to be flexible in just, okay, well, I'm just going to go this way or go do something else. So I appreciate that ability to be able to navigate their own way and think for themselves and not just absorb everything as truth outside of the farm. And then for my kids, they've learned confidence, they've learned task completion, they've learned working through these hard things, and they've learned to trust themselves. Again, the kids, even the parents come back and tell me that they can see the transformation in their kids, and then how they talk. Hey, again, I look at these kids that are afraid of the animal even coming up this close to them, and now they're rubbing all over the dog or picking up the rabbits because they learned that this is how I hold it right. This is how I listen to the animal, because, you know, chickens scream if they aren't held properly. This is how if the animal starts doing something, this is how I'm able to adjust and push it down in my arm to hold it like this instead of it having to climb up around my neck. This is how to pay attention if something is sick, and how to treat it. And they just develop that confidence to be able to say, hey, I am able to solve this problem. And if I don't, I'm going to try and figure out a different way to solve that problem. One of the things I do, and I always have parents that want to try and help them, but I have a hose, a well house, and they have to turn on the hose. Well, if they turn on the hose full blast, this hose will spray everywhere and it'll spray everybody. And the parents always want to go, no, and I always say, no, just let them figure it out. Because if the parents are always holding the hose, they're not going to learn to turn the hose on a little bit instead of just cranking it and doing it full blast. Yeah. So they've learned to slowly adjust or adjust as needed, so that you don't get the full blast, or so that you can just not knock over all the buckets. They've just learned a lot of subconscious things. I know I keep repeating that, but there's just a lot of subconscious things that may be small. Again, it's just turning on a hose, but the ability to be able to kind of gauge and know, I think that will help them in life in other things. Like, hey, should I be putting so much or doing this to that, putting this much energy into this, or maybe should I just kind of put a medium amount of energy into it? Or if, you know, someone pushes me down at a playground, or if something happens, how can I resolve it? Let me slow down my brain enough to be able to think about the different ways to be able to solve this problem.
Thank you. It's really teaching them problem solving technique. In terms of, you know, as much as you might think, people might think, oh, turning on the hose. No, it does, because it demonstrates to them that, okay, you have to adjust how much or how little or how much, because how much demonstrates you getting soaking wet, right? To how little, which means that it is dripping, so therefore you won't get soaking wet. It is so very true, though. It is so very true. And I think the more children learn all the skills at a young age, the better for them. Because right now, a lot of them don't even know how to navigate things, especially in the mainstream education.
And even when it comes to consequences, you know, sometimes you don't always see like my action then results in this consequence. Sometimes it's to yourself or sometimes it's others. Well, when they turn on the hose and it sprays their friends, well, now their friends are screaming because they're all wet. They learn there's consequences that happen with, you know, their action that they did. Same as, you know, when it comes to trusting themselves, like these kids climbing over the gate. Well, they need to learn to trust their body, that they can get the right foothold, or they can step the right place. And then that goes and translates into their own life. Well, I'm able to trust myself to make the right decision and not fall down and bust my face, is what I always say.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. And it also helped them to build confidence as well. A lot of that. Of that. Wow. Oh my goodness. I'm sitting here visualizing this farm, right?
And it's interesting. So I had a co-op come the other day, and a lot of them have not dealt with farming at all. And at the beginning of the class, we talked about chickens. I had everybody touch their wattle and the comb. I had them touch their ears. We talked about how the ears of the chicken tells the color of its eggs it's going to be. We look at the wings, we look at the feet, and then they learn how to hold it. And of course, they're all freaking out. I don't want to hold a hen. I don't want to hold a rooster. They run away. And then we bring it back. And then, as we can progress throughout the rest of the class, at the very last part, we all hold baby chicks. So I'll start with the big ones, and then I'll start, go at the end with the little ones. And by the time we get to the baby chicks, they've like got all that built up energy. Like, I can't do this. And then I correct them. I'm like, you can, you just have to figure out a different way. They're holding the baby chicks. Like, they've been doing this since, for years. And I'm like, weren't you just the one who was screaming and freaking out that about this chicken kind of being close to you? But now you're sitting here holding this baby chick, like you've been doing it all the time. So it is really cool to see that even the confidence just in a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like looking at it, oh my goodness, this is going to scratch me. This is going to pull on me too. Oh, wow. And they're beginning to stroke it. It's so interesting in all of that. Wow.
And know that it's okay if they get pecked, and to listen, to know like hey, this is, if they're screaming, then that's something wrong. And I hold up the chicken by its wing or by its foot or by its neck, and I'm like, I ask them if this is how to hold it. They're like, oh no. But it's almost like they then get the knowledge of, well, if the chick is screaming, or if he's calmed down and his feet start to drop because he's calmed down, or he starts to fall asleep, then he's telling you what you're doing is right. And because they have that little bit of knowledge, it helps them move forward with that confidence, or gaining that confidence too.
Wow. I'm just listening and thinking, wow. So you did say, in terms of your curriculum, you say that you actually make up a curriculum yourself. You devise a curriculum yourself. How did you do that? What are the criteria that enable you to?
So when I first started, I couldn't find anything. I looked a lot online, and it was a lot of, well, here's, ABC coloring of it. And here's, it wasn't very informative. It was more just, here's a basic worksheet. So I looked at it in terms of myself. Then what was the first thing I wanted to learn? And a lot of people get into homesteading because of chickens. They're easy, quote unquote. They're inexpensive because you can get a little bird for $2 to $5, not counting all the other setup along the way. But it's just, they're an easy, they call it the gateway drug. It's just easy to get into with chickens. So I started off with chickens because that's what a lot of people want to know about when they are starting to look into homesteading. And then from there, I just ask myself the other questions of, well, what next? And then how to space out the classes, or what other animals can I use? And then I started just filling in that way. And then just tried to get the basics of everything that I would have wanted to know. And then that's how I started building it.
Okay, thank you. How long ago you've started the farm?
2 years. So we've been here. Yeah, we've been here 4 years. 2019, yeah, 4 years. And then I started it 2021. Nope, 2022. So this is my second year going on. So very new, but it's and I told myself I wanted to grow slow, but it's definitely growing, which is a little intimidating.
It's going faster than you expected.
Even though trying to go slow. But yeah, it goes back to, I think there is a need and a desire. So
wow. So which means that, did you have to go out and learn your skills, or how did you learn how to, in terms of how to identify when the chicken wasn't feeling happy?
So I got chickens in 2007. 17. That was my first.
Okay.
Yes. And I said, I want to go look at Tractor Supply because I see a picture of a chicken on a billboard and I want to go look at baby chicks. I had no idea about anything. Well, I went to go look and came home with 6. And then I came home and I stuck them in my bathroom because I had no idea what to do with them. I didn't even have a heat lamp on them. And my husband came home. I was in Pennsylvania and he was in South Carolina. So there was about an 8-hour drive in between because he was going to school while I was finishing up my time in the military. And he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just thought this was a good idea to just get these baby chickens and throw in the bathroom. He's like, well, you need all this. So that's how it started. Then I started watching videos. And my big thing is, throughout my life, I've learned about my personality because I think it's very important. So like when I talk to other people about wanting to homestead, I think the biggest thing is about learning your personality because I'm the type of person who needs to learn by experience. Yes, it's great to have everybody else's experience, but unfortunately, like I'm the one who needs to touch the stove to know that it's hot and understand that it's hot. So I, even when it came to my classes or when it comes to new classes I create or bring up, I want to know, I push myself to and ask myself the question of what do I want to learn? And then that then gives me the answer of, okay, I'm going to teach this class then. For example, if I want to learn about plant propagation, I may not know about it, but if I put this class in, then I'm going to force myself to have to go to the library and start reading about it. So that's how I've started. That's how I've learned. So it's a lot of the questions I kind of had to figure out from experience, or I did a whole bunch of research prior to the class to make sure I could speak a little more informally about. But a lot of it is, especially with the chickens, I've had to experience the life and death, or the chicken, not waking, getting sick or getting squished, or, and I remember my first time I cried for 3 days because my chicken got squished and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And now I'm like, oh, I butcher my animals, but it's been a progression.
Wow. Oh my goodness, that's fascinating. Wow. Oh my goodness. How many animals do you have in total?
So we get up to about 200, and a lot of them are from the poultry. So we have a lot of meat birds, we have a lot of laying hens, we have lots of geese and ducks, and then turkeys. And we did have peacocks, but we have a lot of birds. And then the larger animals are on the smaller side. But we get up to about 200.
Okay. So you have laying chicken so that you sell the eggs. So that's the only thing you sell, right? The eggs.
No. So we sell them live. We sell them butchered. We sell them as baby chicks, or we sell the eggs. So we sell or fertilized eggs. So lots of different caveats. So again, when you talk about homeschooling and the different skills that they teach, again, the subconscious skills or traits. My mom pushed my creativity. So I look at a chicken and I don't just see a chicken. I see 6 different things that you can do, 6, 7, 8 different things that you can do with the chicken. So I can, the live, the butchered, the egg, the fertilized egg, you could just use the feathers for something. You could use it for, and again, you could use it for education. So I have a couple chickens that are super sweet that I will keep around just because of, for the sheer fact of their temperament and using them for classes. So I've been able to take that trait now throughout my life, and now I'm using it to then teach other kids, hey, here's how you can think outside the box, or here's how something can be used for not just this one purpose.
Okay, so you butchered the chicken as well?
I do, which is funny because my husband, when we first started, he said, you're going to need to learn how to butcher these chickens. I said, why would you ever ask me that? I got really upset with him. I was like, we're not living in a zombie apocalypse where I'm going to need to go out butchering my birds. But, but then it came time to move, and I was like, I can't move all these birds. And I was trying to find someone who actually would do the processing for me. And then I couldn't find anybody. And I was like, well, I don't want to just grab some person in their backyard and then have them hurt my animals before they get processed. Even though they're going to get processed, I don't want them to have that last 10 minutes.
Suffer, yeah.
So I started to learn how to do it myself so that it is humane and they're not suffering. And that's the only reason I learned. And it's still hard for me. I do not enjoy taking the life of an animal, but they have a good life. And I make sure that I am very kind to it before as it's alive, and then through the process as well as after. And it's interesting because I do not waste as much that I did just buying from the store. So I respect my animal before when it's live, and then I make sure because it then in turn respects me with its life. But then I also continue to respect it by making sure that I'm not wasting as much as I can of it. So I've been learning different recipes or learning how to use to its entirety. And those are other things that I teach the kids too. I mean, is about respect, because even, if we butcher the animal, we can still respect it, even if it's still going to get processed. And then learning to respect it while it's alive, again, not chasing it or not hurting it. And then respecting it afterwards, because, wasting is, I could think it's disrespectful. And again, I waste sometimes too, but I try to make sure that I'm not just throwing it away because I'm trying to respect its life that it did give me.
Okay, so do you sell, you sell the butcher chicken as well, right? Okay.
Sorry, long answer to your question.
Okay.
And we sell geese, we sell ducks, we sell so the laying hens and the meat birds. And then we also sell like homemade vanilla extract or laundry detergent. A lot of the vegetables that I get, I just give away. I give away a lot of seeds. So people bring me things, and a lot of things I will give away. Then in turn, we sell cats. When we have 13 kittens right now, we'll sell kittens. So it's just whatever we have, we'll then pass off in one form or another.
Wow, so you got 13 kittens right now for sale.
Okay. Yeah, lots of babies.
Okay, and you sell dogs as well, right?
No, not the dogs. So we do have two dogs on the farm, and their purpose is to watch over the animals.
Okay. So you only have 2 dogs. You don't have any dogs you sell?
No.
Okay. So you sell kittens, but you don't sell dogs. Okay, so you only have 2 dogs. Okay. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Final question. What tips would you give to anybody who want to homeschool their children? Bearing in mind you've gone through it and you now send them back to school. How old are your children?
So 21, 18, 8, 5, and 3.5, about to be 4 next month.
Okay. So the big ones have never been homeschooled because they're, okay, it's just the younger ones. Okay. Thank you for that. So what tip would you give anybody who thinking of homeschooling their children? Plus, would you encourage parents, especially homeschooling parents, to actually get the child or children to become aware of farming?
So to answer your first question, my 3 tips that I would have are: trust your gut, that no one knows your child better than you do, and then to try. So when it comes to trusting your gut, if you're asking the question, or you're starting to asking the question, there's something that's triggered that's going on where you're like, hey, I don't think this is right. And a lot of, again, I read a lot of forums, I talk to a lot of parents, are like, I just am not sure. Just trust your gut, knowing that, hey, either my child isn't getting what he needs to be, or something's not right at that school system. You can always look at the options. It could be public, it could be private, it could be homeschooling, it could be, people do co-ops. There are other families I have that are homeschooling their kids, but one mom will homeschool certain subjects, and then so they kind of co-homeschool. So there's again kind of the creatively looking at the different ways you can, but trust your gut, because if you're having these questions or if you're asking these questions, then there's something going on that someone's not, specifically your child isn't getting the needs met. And which goes into the second one is no one knows your child better than you do. And you are the best everything for your child, or the best decision maker for your child. So as a parent, as the, step parent, as the guardian, because even if you don't feel that you're qualified to be able to teach because you haven't been homeschooled, or you've never homeschooled before, just because you care, it automatically makes you the best suited for your child, because you're doing it out of love. You're not doing it out of competition. You're doing it to better this child to go further. And then the third one is try, just like with the farm. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing, and you just figured out on the way. I mean, it could just be learning your personalities. Again, if you're the person who needs to look into all this extensive research over the summer to say, hey, now I feel more equipped to make this decision, then do that. Or if you're just a person that's like, nope, I'm ready to go, I'm going to pull them right now a month before school's out, then then that's you too. But just try, because then you're never going to know if you don't. And then your second question that you had has left in my mind, and I can't remember what the question was. So was it for farming, whether they should go in farming or not?
Yes, listening to the fascination of farming, what you do, etc. I'm just saying, do you think that especially homeschooling parents should be encouraged to take the children on a farm?
So I'm going to say that's interest-based or not. So I did not grow up on a farm. I had no interest in farming. And I understand that even the people that come to my farm are never going to want to do farming. This is my oldest. Sorry, she just poked her head away. They just got back from school. And I think that can go with it. I think there's good experiences that you can get, but I think there's good experiences that you can get from anything. So if you're dragging your child tooth and nail to something that they have no interest in, then they're not going to be engaged to try to receive that information anyways. I know a lot of, here we call it unschooling. I don't know if you guys do unschooling over there. I'm sure it's kind of like where we're going to go along with what interests what our childs are interested in, our children are interested in. So I think that has kind of like my mom, she pushed me because I had the strength and creativity, she pushed me into being creative. And if your child is into history, then go take them into something that's a lot of historic, very historical. If your child's into animals, then yes, take them to a farm. If your child's into music, then take them and push them to work on their musical talents or musical abilities. Take them to a symphony, take them behind the scenes. So I just think it depends on your child. Again, I think, for example, like the military, I think everyone should go into the military because I think it really gives you a different perspective on life, but not everybody's going to. And yes, there are a lot of things that you can do with farming. A lot of things that, a lot of life lessons that you can do with farming. But again, if you're not in a mental state to be able to receive that, I think it just depends on each child. Because then I think you kind of you could be wasting both of your time, and then you're making something, it's making it a negative thing.
Right. So basically you're saying that it's very much like homeschooling, isn't it? If the child is interested in the farm, interested in knowing about animals, yes, support that. In the same way, in terms of when you're homeschooling your children, you actually, cater for the needs. If that child has an interest in music, as you rightly say, you push them in there. Yes, that is very, very true. That's very, very true. But I'm just fascinated with your farm.
Because I think you can definitely learn subconscious traits throughout anything that you do.
Yes.
And then, when it comes to, but, if you use that to, a, here's your live examples right here. When it comes to like, okay, well, should I be homeschool my children because, like the individual child, like whether I should homeschool them or not, again, it goes back to, if you're having that question and you're questioning something, then yes, it might be best to kind of maybe change paths a certain way. And it could just be the summer's coming up. Maybe test it or do a test run throughout the summer and just say, hey, we're gonna, practice doing this because of this reason. Because, again, if you're asking those questions, there's probably a reason. And even with my children, within these next few years, if something does change within our county, they will get pulled. Because I want them to, I'm sending them for specific reasons to learn these core education, because I am not skilled at being able to teach those. But if education stops becoming that main focus, and then there's more opinions or, topics that are more adult topics that are now being taught to the children, then I'm going to then pull them back, because when I'm going to the school to use them, I'm using the school as a tool to be able to teach them the core, like, reading, writing, and arithmetic, those three basic three. But if that stops becoming the focus and then other things start coming the way, then they will get pulled, because then that tool is not doing its job. And I'm going to have to find another reason to caveat. And again, like when it comes to I have a lot of neurodiverse kids who are in my classes on the farm. And through, just being outside helps so much, that, helps that child so much. And, I have autism, I have ADHD, I have, I have people who are, blind or deaf, and that come, and, they may be super hyperactive, and most people don't want to deal with the hyperactiveness of this child. But something changes when these kids hold the animals. And when the kids hold the animals, man, and if they were in a school setting and they're dealing with a teacher who's overworked and exhausted, who's frustrated, then that's going to kind of rub off into that child. Whereas now, if the parents who can just focus on that child, they're able to learn kindness and love, and that some things can be honed and focused in, and they do have strengths, a lot of strengths that a lot of people might not be able to see just from the overwhelm of the massive crowd.
Thank you. That is so interesting and so important, because a lot of children who are neurodiverse don't think that they are worth it, and they don't think that they have a lot of positive. But, what you've just said in terms of, going out on the farm and doing all this thing, it really does make them value themselves and thinking, okay, yes, I could do this. And those skills actually transfer back in, in the world of work. In terms of kindness, in terms of the ability to really listen and, bring themselves together with these animals. It does help a lot, because I worked in 2 schools that used animals as a way of stabilizing the children behavior issue. And this is something I really advocate in terms of, because in the both schools I work in, I've never seen that before. And I'm thinking, this animal, this dog is coming in. And, my colleague was saying to me, oh yes, in the morning, this student who is very hyperactive, not listening at all, when the child spend half an hour with this dog, the child come back in their class is a different child completely. And I find the animals are so very, very powerful, in getting the children to start settling and connected. It really does help.
One of the things I ask the kids in my very first class is can chickens talk? And of course they're like, no. And I'm like, well, they can. They actually have 26 different, depending on where you read, they have 26 different sounds that they actually will speak. But I was like, but how we speak to our animals is how we handle them. And that's how we are, then talking to her. And, some of the craziest kids are some of the most kind, loving, and gentle than I've never seen. I learned so much from, and I tell these kids all the time, I learn more from you than you learn from me. And I remember telling the mom of this one little girl, I'm like, you taught me how to be, because she just let her child go. And so she was blind, and she just let her, oh, remember we came back this way and came through this way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember, like I couldn't even remember that for her. But she pushed her child to like go beyond what I feel like a lot of times society will say, hey, here's your line. And her mother here is saying, no, here's your line. You can go way beyond what society is telling you can do. And and then so that taught me then in return. And yeah, I do think some of it is sad. And I don't think the teachers are given the opportunity or understanding, because they don't, so sometimes how they're talking to the child is kind of like how a kid is freaking out when they're holding a chicken. They were never taught to properly how to handle it. And if you give them the education piece and can teach them, then they can move mountains, kind of the Dr. Seuss quote there.
It is so very true. It is so very true, in the sense that, just show them that there are no limits. And too often in the education system, or, even as parents, we tend to put limits. And the reason why I think we tend to put limits is also fear element as well.
And I think that's normal, and I think that's okay. And that's why you have a community of other people that can say, no, let them fall and, bust their face. Okay, not, or let them make a mistake, or let them spray the hose everywhere so everybody's getting wet. Like, let them make a mistake. Because I mean, like this mother, I just reminded me, like, I need to be reminded as well myself. And, through homeschooling and through building your community or growing your community, then that other parent can say, hey, no, it's okay that they go do this, and you'll do that then to someone else in another topic or subject. So kind of like the whole working together, or raising by community. Did I lose you? Because you're frozen. I'm not sure if I'm still alive and everybody can see. Let's see, I might have to close it down. I'll check on Facebook to see if it's still live. That's what I'm doing here. Oh, I guess it is still live and it got disconnected. So I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Bye.